Hey guys, Blue here. So we do have Tronus arriving tomorrow with the end of Act 5. And given that none of us have played with him in almost a year, and there are also plenty of newer players who, some of whom may have never used him, I wanted to go over him a little bit, offer some thoughts on him, the pros and cons to using him, because there are pros and cons to using him, and just give you some tips as to how to make the most of him. If you're not aware, Tronus is the best bot in the game, okay? If you watch my videos, you know that I don't rank bots, but just in terms of his overall abilities, he is very overpowered. And as I said, that actually has some pros and cons, actually, which we'll talk about. But he can do almost everything. You can use him in nearly every kind of fight, and for that reason, he tends to be used by almost everybody, okay? And so let's go ahead and take a look at him. We can do so in the story, okay? So we have a Tronus right here in the latest mission. And so we can take a look at his kit. Okay, so Tronus is an easy bot to use. There's just a few things to bear in mind and get used to, but overall it's a pretty simple play style. And his entire kit is relating to his relics. And his relics allow him certain abilities, give him certain buffs, and so forth. So when you play with Tronus, it's really just about learning to understand how his relics work and making sure that you're using the corresponding attacks that his particular relics activate for him, right? Now his SIG is excellent, super useful. The Relic of Obedience, it can trigger every time he gains a bar of power, depending on SIG level. And when it does trigger, it prevents the opponent from activating any buffs or debuffs for 7 seconds. This is a big deal because, first of all, they cannot land things like DOT, bleed, shock, burn, etc. They can also not activate any of their own buffs like armor buffs, crit rate buffs, range buffs, etc. That's extremely advantageous because of the fact that obviously a lot of these buffs and debuffs can be very powerful and do a lot of damage, particularly in AMs, which is where most people are going to use Tronus anyway, right? We're on a very powerful, difficult map with some super strong mods, very strong shock mods and lanes and bleed bots and bleed lanes, etc., etc. His SIG will be extremely useful for the new AM map. Okay, now it's a low chance to activate when he's at very low SIG, but if you invest in it even up to mid-level, it maxes out at about a 65% chance at SIG 100, which is very good because of the fact that, remember, he has a chance to gain it every single time he gains a bar of power, which he's going to obviously doing over and over again. So you don't have to max out his SIG, but if you are going to be using him, particularly in competitive or higher level AMs, I would recommend investing in it at least somewhat because it really does make a difference, okay? So, as I said, his relics are what his kit is entirely about. He alternates between the Relic of Fury and the Relic of Preservation, and he also has Power Steal and Life Steal, so these are the abilities that increase with rank, okay? So, his power gain is unique to him, all right? It's a bit different in that it's entirely passive. He doesn't generate power when he hits or when he gets hit. He passively generates 1.2% of max power every second. Now, this is actually not correct. He does generate power a bit faster than that. They never actually corrected this. If it was 1.2% of max power per second, it would take him nearly 90 seconds to get to a special 3. It does not take that long. It's actually more like double that. It'll take him about 15 seconds to get to, say, a special 1. Regardless, though, his power gain is a bit slow, which is probably a good thing given the fact that he's so OP. He's already a bit over the top in terms of his abilities. So you have to be mindful of this. The good thing is it is remarkably consistent. So once you get the hang of using him, you know about how long it's going to take him to get to a special 1 or a special 2, etc. And you can plan accordingly. Okay? Now, he always starts the fight with the Relic of Fury. And every time he gains a bar of power, he alternates between them. That's the main thing you really have to remember with Tronus, is which relic is active when you are doing your attacking, all right? Now, both the Relic and the Relic of Preservation have some very powerful buffs and abilities tied into them. The Relic of Fury gives him 50% extra attack, which is huge, and it decreases the opponent's block proficiency by 20%. That's a lot, so he can hit very hard when the Relic of Fury is active. The Relic of Preservation is a very defensive relic, which gives him 50% damage resistance and limits the amount of damage he can take in a single blow to 20% of his health. This is also huge. 50% damage resistance is massive. I mean, that's like a giant armor buff. And in addition to that, he cannot lose more than 20% of his health in a single blow, which is also significant because that means that if the Relic of Preservation is active and the opponent lands, let's say, a big special on you, you're not going to lose more than 20% of your health, right? Whereas with a lot of other bots in that situation, it might kill them. So the Relic of Fury is very offensive. The Relic of Preservation is very defensive. He's very, very tanky with the Relic of Preservation. The Relic of Immortality triggers when he hits 10% health, and it triggers once per fight. It makes him entirely immune to all damage for 8 seconds. Nothing can penetrate this. DOT can't penetrate it. Certain, buffs, debuffs, Cheetor's Feral Strike can't ignore it. All of that stuff. He is entirely immune to damage for 8 seconds. Now, here's the thing, though, that you have to remember, is that it is only once per fight, so in longer fights, it's not going to activate over and over again. On top of that, though, he has to survive a blow that will land him at under 10% health, meaning that if you are using Tronus, he's at 15% health, and the opponent lands a huge hit that would take him to 0, he will just die. But if the opponent lands a hit that would take him from 15 to 5% health, he will survive. And then you have 8 seconds to kind of recover. It's a safety net that happens once, at the end of the fight. He does get a nice crit chance boost with the light hit of a light or medium combo, so it's very advantageous to use those full combos with him. His heavies are very good, because he always applies Dark Burn, and his heavies can do quite a bit of damage. They're also very easy to spam because he's in that aerial mode. They're kind of a safe heavy to use from a distance. You should always be careful about spamming heavies, but he's got a very good heavy. His specials are good. They're not the best, which again is also a good thing given how OP he is in general. However, they have some extremely useful abilities tied into them, right? So with Special 1, he has a 60% chance to armor break. It's a pretty good 30% armor reduction for 8 seconds. Now remember though, it's not guaranteed. It's a 60% chance. However, if you're going up against, say, a tanky bot and you've lost your armor breaker, right? If your Megatron or your OGP is down and you need to use Tronus, you will be able to land armor break sometimes. And if the Relic of Fury is active, he will steal 30% of the opponent's current power. So this is the only other way to generate additional power quickly with Tronus, given his passive power gain. You can do the power steal with a Special 1 if the Relic of Fury is active, right? So you have to be mindful of which relic is active when you're using him, because the specials that you use will grant him different abilities. With his Special 2, this is a very good special. It can do quite a bit of damage. The last hit is unblockable. He also has a 30% chance to stun for 2.5 seconds. And if the Relic of Preservation is active, he will steal 15% of his max health. So this is his healing ability, which of course is super, super useful. Okay? His Special 3 can do a lot of damage because he has a 100% chance to apply Dark Burn, which deals 200% of attack, which is quite a lot. And then with the Special 3, you will either steal 30% of the opponent's power or get the life steal, depending on which relic is active. However, with the Special 3, it is only a 64%, so about a 2 in 3 chance to power steal or life steal, which means that it's not guaranteed. So if you want that guaranteed healing or the guaranteed power steal, you want to use the Special 1 or Special 2. Okay, so the bottom line with Tronus is, as I said, be mindful of which relic is active, and then what you generally want to do is use the Special 1 first, and then once you build back up to a Special 2, you will have the Relic of Preservation, and then you're able to start healing, and you can heal over and over again, right? So it's just a matter of getting used to his relics and knowing what you need in the moment. If you need healing, right, then you go for the Special 2 with the Relic of Preservation. If the opponent is close to a Special 3, you need to steal power, right? Then you do the special one when the Relic of Fury is active. So it doesn't really take that long to get used to it. You just have to be aware of which relics are active and which abilities will trigger when you're using certain attacks. Okay, so as you can see, I mean, he has a bout of everything. This is what makes him very OP. Okay, now here's the thing about Tronus. Okay, he is undoubtedly an excellent bot, and most people will end up using him. Okay, but there are drawbacks to that. My advice with Tronus is use him in the most difficult content only, which in the new version of the game is pretty much just going to be AMs, particularly if you're doing higher level AMs. Okay, he will be very useful on this new AM map. We also do not have kits. We don't have revives, so there'll be additional incentive to use him, because any bot that can heal, any bot that has a lot of tankiness like he does with his Relic of Preservation, any bot that has such a great combination of abilities like Tronus does is going to be helpful in AMs, right? So I am actually not the biggest fan of Tronus. I think he gets boring pretty fast. However, I will use him. I'm going to rank him up, and I will use him in AMs because I do high-level AMs. And AMs are not about you, they're about the team, right? They're about fighting as cleanly as possible, helping yourself and your teammates out to finish the map, get to 100%. So I will use Tronus personally in AMs, but probably nothing else. Because, like I said, he can get boring pretty quick. So if you're already a really good experienced player, go ahead and use Tronus because you already know what you're doing. However, if you are a newer player or a less experienced player, go ahead and use him if you want, but I would caution you against using him too much because he is a very easy bot to over-rely on. You can end up ranking him up and then just using him in everything because he makes everything easier. Everything. And that's not very satisfying, and more importantly, it's not a good way to improve. You're not going to get better at the game if you're just using Tronus all the time because he just has such a great safety net. So my suggestion, if you love the guy, go ahead and use him as much as you want. You should always use bots that you like. But if you want to get better at the game, and more importantly, if you want to keep the game fresh, be limited in the kind of content that you use Tronus in. So a good rule of thumb is use Tronus for the most difficult content only. That's it. Anything that's not really hard for you, use other bots because that's how you get better and that's how you keep things fun and interesting. Okay? So, like I said, I'll probably do some gameplay with him over the next week. Once I rank him up, I can talk about his synergies and, just give you a look at him if you haven't used him before. But that's where we are, guys. The good thing is because none of us have actually played with him in almost a year, he will be fresh at first. I'll enjoy using him when he first comes out. And so, we'll have some time before he starts to get boring again. That's just how it is. So anyway, I hope all of you guys are well. I will leave it there for now. And we'll be in touch again in the coming days. Take care.